Today on Retire with Purpose, are you paying too much in fees and expenses inside of your 401k? Should you be looking to roll that 401k to a traditional IRA? And how our family is working towards creating money-empowered children.
Are you prepared to retire with purpose? To retire knowing your savings is invested to meet unavoidable needs and expenses.
It's not how much we make during the good times, it's how much we keep during those really bad times.
Certified financial planner Casey Weade is president of Howard Bailey, an advisory firm that believes successful retirement begins with a detailed financial plan personalized to help achieve your life's purpose.
Whatever risk you faced, we've got a plan.
The Howard Bailey team is committed to practical financial planning so you can enjoy family and the future without uncertainty or stress. Stay tuned and learn how you too can retire with purpose.
Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. I am Lee Kelso here with Casey Weade, certified financial planner, and of course the president of Howard Bailey Financial. We're beginning the program today with information from an article called Everything You Need to Know About 401k Fees from MarketWatch, and you included this in your weekend reading for retirees.
I did. Every single Friday I send out 4 articles directly from my desktop to your inbox that outlines current retirement trends on taxes and estate planning, investment fees, expenses, and sometimes just what's going on in the market.
So what is there about this article that made you feel it was so important that we talk about it today?
Well, I often find that folks will come into our office and have a total misunderstanding of their 401k and what the fees are, their mutual fund expenses. I've heard time and time again that, well, I don't pay anything with my 401k, so why would I hire you? And the reality is that many times you might actually pay us less than what you're paying in mutual fund fees and expenses, administrative charges, service charges, advisory fees, all these things that are wrapped up in your 401k that you can't really see. And I thought this article did a great job really outlining what those fees are, what the average costs are, and then also sharing with us where we can find those things. Because it's not like we walk to the store and we know what we're paying for a bag of potato chips. You know, we know what we're paying for a new camera. We know what we're paying for our vacation. But when it comes to our investments, we don't know what we're paying for our fees and expenses. There's no price tag. And that is extremely frustrating. I think for me, I think it's a really frustrating aspect of investing for most investors. And I think that's part of what we've been seeing going on in the whole industry. I think there is this push for greater transparency, greater disclosure, and it's being fought really hard by the 401k providers, by brokerage houses, by mutual fund companies, and we need to break through all that. I think one of the most interesting things that this article stated was something that I've long known to be true. It really outlined this point. They said that 95% of people know what they're paying for streaming media services like Netflix, Hulu. I mean, what do we pay? $5.99 for Hulu and $7.99 maybe for Netflix, something like that. And if you look at the individuals, those same group of people, 27% of them knew what they were paying in 401k fees, what it was costing them to invest in their 401k. I think that it's probably even a lower number than that. It's probably not 27%. It's probably more like 10% or 15% because 27% think they know what they're paying. Yeah. But what they're actually looking at is probably something like the expense ratio, right? Or they pull out their statement and they go, well, I'm paying 1% plus I'm paying this $25 administrative fee. And so I know what I'm paying. The reality is Wall Street Journal and Forbes did articles over the last few years that showed us that the average expense ratio in a mutual fund, which is what most people know of as their cost of investing in a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund, the typical investments in a 401k, they said that's about 1.5%. But if you include the undisclosed expenses, such as trading cost, that on average doubles the cost of the average U.S. equity mutual fund. So there's a lot of funds out there that are costing you more than 3%. We audited a 401k the other day that had a mutual fund that was charging over 5% a year in total expenses, and the client had the majority of their funds invested in that particular fund, and they wanted to know why they were underperforming. Well, it was because of the fees and expenses that we didn't understand. Think about $5.99 or $7.99 a month. Your 401k could be $350 a month.
Sure.
It could be $3,500 a month for that matter. And if it's $3,500 a month over 10 years, that's $35,000. Over 20 years, that's $70,000. It could be in the six figures easily over a lifetime of working. That's a lot more than we're going to pay in our streaming media services for that matter.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it matters.
Oh, of course it does. So does that mean 401ks are bad? How do I work around that limitation?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with 401ks, and frankly, not all 401ks are outlandishly expensive. Many of them are not, but for that matter. Brightscope did a study here not that long ago that found that the largest plans, large plans would be something that's considered over 100 million. So these are really big plans. And these plans have expenses on average that are less than 1% a year. So that's not outlandish. That's not crazy, and that's not really digging into your savings too deeply. But if you look at some of the smaller plans, small plans have expenses between 1.5% and 2% a year, and they even uncovered some plans that have expenses in excess of 3.5% a year. So it really depends on the plan that we're in and really understanding what those fees and expenses are. I mean, you think of a small plan, you're probably in a small plan. Most small plans, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, those plans can get very expensive. We had a plan that was fairly expensive. It wasn't a 401k when I started. We had a simple IRA, and we had upfront loaded mutual funds. Why would I possibly have an upfront loaded mutual fund in this day and age when I can have index funds or C shares for that matter without upfront loads, or institutional shares inside of your 401k? There are just so many opportunities today to reduce our fees and expenses, and sometimes even hire a financial planner or an advisor at the same cost that we were paying our 401k company. And I think that's the biggest thing, because I sat down with a couple here recently and we implemented a plan. And as we were reviewing their plan and outlining their fees and expenses of what they were going to pay when working with us, it was actually 0.10%, 0.1% higher to work with us over what they were paying in their 401k fee. And when we include everything we did from income planning, we put together a Roth conversion and a tax strategy for today and legacy, put together a healthcare strategy and inflation strategy, an emergency fund plan for them to fund that emergency fund. I mean, we put together this plan that gives them greater confidence, and they've got a team behind them they can actually rely on and go to when they need coaching or they need advice, and they're paying about the same that they were paying in their 401k.
But am I giving up that employer match? Does that employer match? How do I evaluate its value?
Well, there's no question that there are huge benefits to 401ks, and that is probably the biggest benefit of 401ks is our 401k match. If you get a match, then that's guaranteed money back in your pocket, and you need to be taking advantage of that match. That is by far and above the biggest benefit that you can have of 401k, but not everybody offers matches in their plans today. And if you don't have a plan, I say go put those dollars somewhere else. Put them in a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, or set up a tax deferred account somewhere else that can give you tax advantages without the restrictions that a 401k has. Because I think the biggest downside of your 401k is that you have ultra limited investment choices, especially when it comes to the safe aspects of investing. If you're looking for something that's going to pay you 3% or 3 to 5% and give you principal protection, you're not going to find that in a 401k. You're going to have to go to your money market. You're going to have to go to a bond fund that doesn't have guarantees or could be at risk in a rising interest rate environment. You just don't have a lot of great conservative options, and you're very limited. And one of the things that my dad told me all the time when I was growing up, he said, don't put everything in your retirement account. Because I wanted to put everything in my Roth IRA that I was saving. When I first started working, making $35,000, $40,000 a year out of college, I wanted to max out my Roth IRA. And he said, well, be careful, because now you may not have access to those funds when the real opportunities strike. Because real money is not made in the stock market, despite what you might hear. The real wealth is ultimately created out of investing in yourself, investing in businesses, investing in real estate. And if you put everything in your 401k, you lose a lot of that flexibility. You might get great tax advantages, get a match, but I think it's important to also look at other places to put those dollars as well.
Well, if you're not really sure exactly what you're paying in fees and expenses, we have the answer for you, and it's really pretty simple. Just jump on the phone right now and call the number on your screen, and we'll be able to help you figure out what's going on inside your 401k. It's part of our complimentary review of your retirement plan. We'll take a look at fees and expenses, how you might be able to avoid some taxes that you're currently paying. We'll take a look at how much risk is hiding in your portfolio, and then take a look at, are you set up for a lifetime income? Is there a vehicle to keep paying you in retirement? All of those things are critical, and that's what you're going to receive as part of this complimentary retirement review. If you jump on the phone right now, call the number on your screen and request a meeting with a member of the Howard Bailey team. It sets you down the road toward retiring with purpose. All right, let's get to our question of the day, and it has to do with 401ks. Question is, can you roll over your 401k to an IRA at 60 years of age? We have the answer when we come back.
At Howard Bailey Financial, every dollar has a purpose. We call it the purpose-based retirement. A certified financial planner will help you decide what you need your retirement money to do for you. We put together a written plan that puts your dollars exactly where you want them to be. And we put every dollar to work to maximize your retirement efficiency. For a higher level of insight and care, choose the purpose-based retirement from Howard Bailey Financial. Call us now to set a complimentary consultation.
So if our segment one discussion there had you considering whether or not to roll over your 401k, check out the answer to our question of the day. Can you roll over a 401k to an IRA at 60 years of age? Casey, what's the answer?
Well, Lee, typically the answer is true, and it is a bit of a trick question because there's not a hard, fast rule that says everybody can roll over their 401k after the age of 59 and a half. But over 80% of companies allow you to do in-service rollovers. So you can continue to work for the company that you've been working for, but roll over your 401k to an IRA and continue to make contributions, continue to pick up your employer match, but now you've got funds in an IRA where you can start actually building a financial plan in lieu of retirement. That's why they allow you to do this, right? You get over 59 and a half, they know you're getting close to retirement, and they know the restrictive options inside the 401k may not allow you to build the type of financial plan that can give you the security and confidence you need to make that transition into retirement. And I think it's a really important thing to do prior to retiring, because now we can actually start to do some planning and get a good handle on what's going to happen in the future anyways, because at some point you're going to end up rolling that 401k over to an IRA. You're not going to be able to leave it with the employer forever. Right. So why not start getting comfortable with that process prior to actually stepping into retirement, or even being forced into retirement for that matter.
All right, so let's get to our viewer questions, and we're going to start today jumping down to Markle, Indiana, and Bruce. Go right ahead.
I read online that I need 80% of my pre-retirement income in retirement. Right now I'm saving 40% of my current income, and I'm 10 years out from retirement. Is that a guideline that I should be following?
Well, I actually know Bruce, and he really is a saver like that, where he can actually save that level of income. There's a lot of people out there that have that capability, and the traditional retirement rules don't really apply to most of those people, right? If we're saving 40% of our annual income, then that means we're living off of 60% of our annual income, so we don't have to follow this guideline of 80%. And that's why I think it's important to understand the difference between rules and guidelines, because this isn't a hard, fast rule. It's a rule of thumb, okay? Don't get me wrong. I think it can be very helpful for somebody that's starting to plan how much they should be saving, so that they can also ultimately determine how much they need to have in the future. However, it doesn't apply to everybody. It's kind of like the rule of 100, right? How much risk should we be taking when we're 60 years old? Well, we should have 60% of our assets in secure places or fixed income, 40% at risk. Well, if I have no need for retirement income, I've got maybe a health care plan or a long-term care plan that the employer is going to allow me to take into retirement, then, and maybe I've got a pension of $5,000 a month, well, then that person could have 100% at risk. You know, and I think as we get closer and closer to retirement, we have to start really figuring out how these things apply to you. If you're 30 or 40 years out from retirement, you probably just need to follow some of these basic guidelines. You'll be perfectly fine. As you get to be 5, 10 years out from retirement, like Bruce here, well, now you really need to start refining what retirement's going to look like for you, so that you can come up with a very specific strategy. Because when you step into retirement, it's permanent unemployment. You can't go back and undo some of the mistakes you might have made because you were just following rules of thumb. It's time to start planning.
Next question has to do with 401ks, and it comes from Taylor in Butler.
I turned 59 and a half this year and have most of our savings in the company 401k plan. What are the pros and cons to doing a rollover to an IRA while I'm still working?
Well, one of the biggest benefits that you have with a 401k is creditor protection. And so that's kind of one of the neat things about leaving some funds in the 401k is you get a little bit of improved creditor protection. IRAs still have some protective measures that are in place, but you get a little bit more protection with your 401k. And another benefit of leaving some funds with your employer in the 401k is for instance, this, for people that are, say, 55, we've got somebody that's 59 and a half, but if you were under 59 and a half years old, when you take distributions after separating from service from your 401k, you avoid a 10% penalty, okay? And versus if you would have moved those dollars into an IRA, you would have been paying 10% penalty prior to the age of 59 and a half. That's just a little known rule that is in place for 401ks versus IRAs. I think after the age of 59 and a half, it is difficult to argue that it's better to leave funds in your 401k because you can't leave them there forever anyways. And as I said earlier, let's get comfortable with the process of utilizing retirement accounts and IRAs, and especially having more independence. You want less risk as you get closer to retirement, but today fixed income instruments are paying so little, right? With interest rates at all-time lows, if you go into a bond fund today, you're probably going, if it's an investment grade bond fund, you might be yielding 2 to 3%, maybe 3 or 4% if you're lucky, but the higher the yield, the longer they're going out in the yield curve, more the interest rate risk that they're taking. And if you want to understand interest rate risk, just pull out your latest investment statement and look at your bond funds. They didn't do real well this year as interest rates have risen. Bond prices have fallen, and that's the biggest problem with those traditional fixed income instruments that are inside of a 401k. And as you get closer to retirement, you want those conservative investments, and you can avoid that type of interest rate risk and principal risk with similar yielding investments outside of your 401k in a self-directed IRA.
Let's move ahead to an email question from Chris in Cherubusco. I've always been in the driver's seat when it comes to our finances. However, I know we need a second set of eyes. How do you help people give up control and hand things over to your team?
Well, Chris, I like to think of us as not handing over control. I like to think of this as a team effort. I had somebody the other day that was in the office, and that was their big concern. They said, you know, now it just feels like we're buying something. It feels like we're making a big purchase. It feels like we're buying a new house or a new car, and I've got this buyer's remorse, or I've got this anxiety. Well, the thing is, when you buy a car, when you buy a house, the money's gone, right? You know, you've moved it, you've bought something, you've actually deployed it, and you have given up control over that cash. Now you have a car, now you have a house. You know, really, most instances, we're just moving those funds from one place to the next. So take a 401k rollover, for instance. You're taking funds from a 401k, rolling them over to an IRA, maybe in relatively similar investments with similar costs and fees, but now you have a coach. You have someone to sit there with you and walk you through the financial planning process, and someone to rely on during those difficult times, and someone to really walk life with you, walk retirement with you, and that can be a very reassuring and protective thing that we can have when working with a financial professional. He said in that meeting, he said, well, I don't want to, I know you're the captain now, and now you're taking over, and you're going to be driving the ship. And I said, no, I am not the captain. You are the captain, not me. Let's think of me as the navigator, okay? So I may tell you that there's an iceberg ahead and we need to go to port. And then you say, well, I think we can plow through that thing. Well, then that's your decision. I'm here to act as a guide to educate you on the risks and all of the options you have, but ultimately you're in control and you decide which way to turn that ship.
Well, if you think you'd like to have a navigator on your team, here's an opportunity to do that. Just jump on the phone and call the number on your screen right now and ask for a complimentary review of your retirement plans. It's a chance to sit down with a Howard Bailey team member and get some of that coaching, some of that guidance. You won't give up your role as the captain as we take a look at exactly what's going on in your accounts with fees and expenses, taxes you might be able to avoid, how much risk is in that portfolio, and do you have a vehicle for a lifetime income you can't outlive? live. All things we'll review in a complimentary retirement review with a member of the Howard Bailey team if you get on the phone and call and make that request right now. All right, when we come back, we're going to be talking with a member of Casey's extended team, John Lanza, about allowances for your kids.
At Howard Bailey Financial, every dollar has a purpose. We call it the purpose-based retirement. A certified financial planner will help you decide what you need your retirement money to do for you. We put together a written plan that puts your dollars exactly where you want them to be. And we put every dollar to work to maximize your retirement efficiency. For a higher level of insight and care, choose the purpose-based retirement from Howard Bailey Financial. Call us now to set a complimentary consultation.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about something that parents and grandparents might have the need to discuss, and that is an allowance for the kids.
Yeah, and how to create a money-empowered child. And recently on one of our podcasts, we had the opportunity to interview John Lanza. And this has quickly become one of our most popular podcasts. I think it's our second most popular podcast right now that we did, because we have a lot of families that we work with that want to understand, how can I take this next generation and make sure that they're fiscally responsible? They don't teach us stuff in school. There's no handbook that tells us how we're supposed to do it. And so we were able to walk through his book, John Lanza's book, during this podcast interview. It also appeared on our YouTube channel. And it really helped me understand how I should be approaching this topic with not just our children, but my spouse and also our family. Because, hey, the grandparents are taking care of the kids sometime, and we all need to be on the same page.
Well, we're going to drop into a little bit of that podcast here. It's at retirewithpurpose.com/podcast. Look for episode 5, John Lanza. And here's John explaining why an allowance is so important.
An allowance is designed to teach your kids money smarts, and that is to get them comfortable with using money and to eventually become kind of money empowered. And what I mean by money empowered very simply is just that they learn to have control over money versus the other way around, where money is kind of having control over them. That's the long-term goal. That's not your short-term goal. So the allowance is doing just that. You set up an allowance so that kids get money to practice with, because there's no way they can learn to become financially smart or money smart without actual money. And you dole it out on a weekly basis in the beginning, and you get them used to making money smart choices and used to understanding those differences between needs and wants.
So I think that's a great setup. That really kind of encapsulates it, and he has an important system that you can use, right?
He did. He outlined that whole system in his book, The Art of Allowance, and just did a wonderful job. You know, you can see I've got all these tags in this book, and I've got all kinds of things highlighted because it really was a great book to understand allowance and how children learn about money. And I always had this idea about allowance that, well, that's, you know, I'm just giving children money. I'm just giving that check to them, or those $5, $10 to them every single week. Isn't that going to create this sense of entitlement? How's that teach them about the value of a dollar? And it's really not about teaching them the value of the dollar as much as it is on how to manage their money. They learn how to manage their money throughout this process. So it's more than just teaching them about the value of the dollar. That can come with hard work, right? So we have our allowance where maybe we're giving them $5. Maybe your children are of an age where you're giving them $20 a week or $30 a week, whatever might make sense in your own given situation. But that is just a dollar that's given to them every single week, regardless of the way they're acting, regardless of what they're doing around the house, because they're going to learn the value of a dollar from some of those other tasks. Maybe it's things that they're not required to do around the house. Maybe it's, you know, you're going to have them go out and do all the landscaping. Maybe you're going to have them clean the house from top to bottom, or take care of cleaning your car for that matter and detail the thing. You know, those things they get little bonuses for. And one of the things that I really enjoyed hearing when it came to John's book was, and I asked about this on the podcast, was, well, you know, what about punishing them, right? Can I use the allowance as this thing that I just take away from them if they're not being good? And because I was making that mistake with our son, 3.5 years old, and I remember one night he didn't want to get his pajamas on, and I said, well, then you're not going to get your allowance next week. And then I talked to John I hadn't got all the way through the book yet, and John said, no, you can't use it that way. And he said that in his book, you can't use it as a punishment because it creates this negative association that children end up having with money. You can take other things away, but for goodness sakes, don't take away their allowance. You're teaching them to have positive feelings about money and ultimately become responsible in managing it.
So one of his techniques is something called the 3-jar system. So walk us through that.
Yeah, so there's 3 jars. It's the spend jar, the save jar, and the share jar. And I think this is just such a cool system because it's not like you're just giving that child $5 or $10 and then they can do whatever they want with it. You're going to teach them about the important things that money can help them accomplish. You know, for our son, save jar, we have to set a goal up for that. Say, what are we saving for? And these are things that they might want. Maybe it's a video game, maybe it's their favorite toy. And in our son's instance, he wants a lizard. And so we had to get him set up to figure out, well, how much is that lizard? How long is it going to take us to ultimately save enough to get that lizard in the end? And we have to draw a picture too, make it visual. And so I drew a little lizard, stuck it to the side of the jar, and he goes, Dad, it looks like a squirrel. And now I'm not an artist, but it was something that helped him visualize that goal, and we can revisit that every single week when we sit down and figure out which dollars we're going to allocate that allowance to. He's got to make some decisions. Do I want to save for something that I'm going to get in the future, or do I want something that gives me instant gratification? And so then you have your spend jar, and that's for whatever they want. Maybe that's going to the store. Maybe our son, we like to take him to the local farmer's market and allow him to go out and buy popsicles and things like that. And then you have your share jar, and this is where he likes to bring ice cream bars, dilly bars, and things to people that work at the office, and he can use that to share and give gifts and things like that. So really neat concept.
And here's John on why this system is so effective for kids.
And this is really powerful for a young kid because they can put it all in the spend money, and then when they go to the store, they can go buy whatever that is, and they can accumulate that spend smart money. Or they might be saving for a goal. They can put it in the save jar. They might be just charitably oriented, and they might put it in the share jar, but it's their money. And that's really a key part here. And parents have to get comfortable with it, and it's not easy.
How about that, Dad? It's not easy.
Yeah, well, I would say, sure, it's not easy, I think, for the parents to stay on task and continue to do this and coach them through this every single week. We're going to make missteps, but it's a very important thing for us to do in order to create these fiscally responsible children that we want to have ultimately that enter the world. And it's been an awesome thing for us to do with our son. I think just the weekly sit down of, okay, you've got $6, where are we going to put it, and talking through what it means to put dollars in each one of those jars. Setting goals and getting that idea early is so important, so valuable for your children or grandchildren.
And if you're interested and would like to watch that podcast, you can just go to retirewithpurpose.com/podcast. It's number 5. John Lanza, his book is The Art of Allowance. And if you'd like to learn more about managing your own money, you don't have to use jars to do that as you're heading toward retirement. There are a lot smarter ways to do it. We hope you'll pick up the phone and call right now and request a complimentary review of your retirement plan and find out exactly what's going on, what opportunities might you be missing, how can you be smarter about preparing for retirement. It's a chance to sit down with a member of the Howard Bailey team and have a complete review of exactly what's happening in your retirement plan, where the holes and gaps might be, and how you can fill those gaps and put yourself on the road toward retiring with purpose. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.